Welcome back to KTN Prime. We continue with our deliberations right here in studio as we canvass Kenya's political landscape. I'm joined by Maliba Arnold, the party leader of Progress Plus Alliance, and Stella Agara, who's a governance and security analyst. Stella, let's put your governance cap on, because it seems the broad-based government is, of course, broader, but there seems to be broader concerns, especially within one of the constituent parties within that particular arrangement, ODM. This voices of dissent, do you think they have the blessings of the party leader sort of wearing two capes in order to manage political expectations within his base, as Maliba sort of alludes to?
Before I respond to that, I would first of all like to just repeat what I said during the break, that Jesse, I cannot believe you have allowed Maliba to do this to the elders of this nation. Even when we are preparing the young leadership, we must always remember that there are mantles that need to be dropped. And those mantles are not normally dropped by fire or by force. There are certain actions that we need to take to collect them. Not all the mantles are beautiful, but there are people who have demonstrated a certain kind of leadership that we must collect. Okay. But having said that, he mentioned that the problem of this nation is a lack of progressive leaders. But those those leaders that he's saying are not progressive, what is it that is a problem with them? If we were to point it out exactly, it's lack of integrity. It's lack of integrity that allows Matiang'i to find himself in a Yala situation. It's lack of integrity that makes them find their hands inside the treasury. Lack of integrity is the reason why they become insincere to the voter that elects them and decide to do whatever they want to do, or to insult Kenyans the way our current president is insulting Kenyans. Now, once you understand that it's lack of integrity that is the problem, you don't go to an election prosecuting lack of progressive leaders. You go into an election carefully investigating integrity. You go into an election with tools to identify who has demonstrated they have integrity and who has demonstrated they do not have integrity. If anybody is stained, they must go. Having said that, the only person, at least on record right now, who has not been tainted by any integrity issues is this Maraga that is exhausted, according to him. But one of the things I've also seen is that once people are energized and surrounded by people, they normally get energy from the crowd, and you'll be shocked to see the kind of campaign that may arise from this gentleman. I welcome, however, alternatives, and Maliba, I'm hoping that the alternative that is being offered by your end is going to be a great one, especially because...
Why are you running away from his secretary?
Especially because, even, well...
You need to make a choice between those two.
No.
That we go with one.
My top choice is known. My top choice is known. I'm just saying Mukisa is also an easy sale. I'm also saying that sometimes you may also get your hands laid on for mantles by a powerful force like Maliba, and the team got laid on by the commander, and so maybe there's an anointing that is going to carry them to power. But having said that, when I was last year, I said that Raila is coming back from the AUC to be a menace in this country. And I said specifically a political menace. One of the things that you must know about this gentleman is that he thrives on hero politics. He doesn't come out of any situation not being the hero in that conversation. As a matter of fact, I have dared to argue that part of the reason why he had to do some of the maneuvers he has done around the Gen Z protests and to waste the energy around the protests is because he could not believe that this was going to happen without him touching it. And so for now, I'm already convinced that this gentleman, and I said it before when I was here, this gentleman is on his way out. He's not about to stay in that home. Baba may stay in a broken house for a very long time, but it will not collapse with him inside. And when he gets out of the place, one of the things that we all agree as a nation is that he has the ability to point at that house as if he's never lived inside of it. So the day he will start discussing UDA and Kenya Kwanza, he will be speaking about it like he has never touched it before.
So from where you sit, it's a question of when, not if.
It's a question of when, and there's a likelihood we may all purify him in our eyes when he tells us the story. I have said it here that I don't know what it is he uses to put us in that kind of trance, but I'm saying we need to be cautious when it comes. He snapped under a very difficult government. The Moi regime was not an easy one to oust, but he snapped under that establishment. And when he had gone in, everyone was convinced he was never going to get out. Who is Ruto for him not to destroy him? The bread-based government, those who the gods want to destroy, they first make mad. This country has a constitution that protects voice. This country has a constitution that allows political parties to actually have individuals who have differing opinions. I don't know what noise they're making about disloyalty, about who is speaking against what. Orengo has a right to have an independent mind to think on his own, and he has a better brain than most of the people who are actually challenging him. The same case for Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, same case for Sifuna. They have excellent brains. And if they stand up and say that they do not agree with something, it is no one's responsibility to compel them to agree. Those rifts, as Maliba has been saying during the break, are deep. And the kind of reconstruction that Baba may have to do when he finally comes out and decides that he has destroyed the tent may be great. But the bottom line is, those who the gods want to destroy, they first make mad. And I have seen that the entire UDA has been driven to insanity. They just don't know that they're being walked towards Mathare.
Interesting. Just very quickly.
Briefly,
So
we need
first
to
of all, of course, she spoke about elders. I just wanted to let her know that just because she's seen me grow through, we grew as teenagers, knowing each other along the way, doesn't mean that we don't grow. You look at me, I'm now growing up. But then, be that as it may, if you were to ask my community, the Uinyi and the Kakenyi, they will tell you that I'm an elder, actually an enthroned one, and they are leaders.
His grays are too much stress. He's having too much politics.
So I am also actually an elder elsewhere. But quickly, Stella's insistence that Raila will make a comeback is the obsession.
I didn't say he'll make a comeback.
That he's a mysterious one. Stella still rides on what I would call the red ocean thinking, the assumptions that Raila will always be a Guambo, the mysterious one. I can tell you an example here. That there was a general called Douglas MacArthur. He did so well in the Second World War. This guy had known the Far East very well. But then when the Korean War began, he came with the same assumptions of how he had dealt with the war earlier. I can tell you that the army MacArthur met across the Yalu River was a very different one. So if you still have the red ocean thinking about Raila being the mysterious one, I can tell you that times and places change. And I do not think that he's going to run out of this. This is Raila's best handshake, and he's willing to risk it all. But finally, on the same, I would love to say this. That sometimes a few Kenyans think that probably by voting in Kenya Kwanza, it was a better option than voting in Azimio. But then I want to support that particular feeling that it's true that by voting in Kenya Kwanza, Kenyans stood in the way of a bullet. They were hit by a bullet. But if you look at what Kaluma is saying, if you look at what Azimio bloggers who are defending the bread-based are saying, then you will realize that as a country, we actually avoided a grenade and took a bullet. That's how bad it is.
Okay, let's shift focus now. We've talked about politics. Let's talk about accountability, because that BBC documentary, Blood Parliament, has elicited angry reactions from Kenyans online. The documentary aimed to identify members of Kenya security forces who shot anti-tax protesters in June last year through camera metadata and live stream timings and whatnot. So in reaction to that documentary, IPOA on Monday revealed that it received 60 reports of deaths linked to protests, with 22 cases concluded, 36 under investigation, and 2 that are currently in court. That's according to IPOA. But there's still a perception among Kenyans that the authority has failed in its mandate to hold rogue officers accountable, because Kenyans are slamming IPOA for what they see as inaction in probing violent crackdown during the June 25th protests. Just today, we had members of parliament reacting to that BBC documentary in Bunge. Let's just listen in to what they had to say, and the views are varied. Listen in.
What their intention is. Their intention could be fuel more harm and whatever. I don't know what their intention is. But from the young people that have spoken, it has actually created more anger. We are taking them back to the path that they would rather not walk again. But they are walking it. And we don't know at what point somebody else will fuel it again. You can't stop the media. Somebody else will fuel that anger again. And so for us to deal with it, let this parliament take that mandate to deal. And we are dealing with people who are angry, people who are depressed. And going there, Mr. Speaker, I remember today when I was speaking in parliament, I broke down and cried. Not because of me, but because of what we had. And we think we are moving on, but there are many young people who have not necessarily moved on.
BBC is funded by taxpayers' money in Britain, meaning that BBC is funded to push the foreign agenda of the British people internationally, Mr. Speaker. And so we must know, is BBC speaking as a mouthpiece of the government and the people of Britain, Or what is it that the BBC is doing? Could it be an attempt to untwist this country so that they can rescind on the rider that we put on their training of the Batuk units in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and perpetuate a history of extractive economy, oppressive economy, and exploitative economy in a very unfair trade balance between Kenya and the UK.
We spoke about that issue in this house, discussed it, sympathized, mourned our fellow Kenyans who passed on during that day. However, it has come at this time again. As much as we agree that our fellow Kenyans lost their lives, unfortunately, but we also moved on.
Okay, those are sentiments by leaders. We didn't hear the full sentiment by the last member of parliament, but you can definitely get the picture that those who are saying you can't stop an idea whose time has come, and this emotions that are amongst the Kenyan population. Others are criticizing the BBC for perhaps inciting Kenyans. So as I cross over to my panelists, I'll be seeking to find out, do you think that documentary was insightful in any way? And will there be any justice for the victims, those lives that were lost during the protest in June 25th last year? Equally, is IPOA a weak link? Should we perhaps push for a commission of inquiry to look into some of these issues? Because it seems that IPOA is, well, they say the wheels of justice grind, but at times they grind slowly. This time round, 1 year later almost, and 2 cases are in court according to IPOA. Stella, what's your take on this?
You know, first of all, I think that there are mechanisms for IPOA to fast-track certain cases, especially if they are of public interest. I do not know why that kind of action has not been taken, especially because this matter is important. But the whining that we have had in the National Assembly could explain why nobody is actually taking that kind of action, because they don't even think it's a big deal. For me, and I was shaking my head here as they were speaking, because for me, I hate it when death happens and certain sectors of our society just treat them as what do you call it, statistics. For those parents who lost their children, most of them have not healed until now. For those sisters who lost brothers or brothers who lost sisters, they are going to take a very long time grieving. So they are not counting this as a forgotten thing. As a matter of fact, it is impossible for them to have forgotten after 1 year. And for me, it's extremely irresponsible for any leader to say that we are taking them back to a place they don't want to go back to. They wake up every day and they go back to that place. One of the young women who managed to convince the entire nation to go and start checking the quarry place said they could not sleep. Every day they would sleep and they would think of their missing relative until the bodies were found. They should always remember that those are not just statistics, they are people's children, number one. I hate to mention this on TV today, Jesse, but we have a story of a gentleman who disappeared in this nation. I don't even know how it was concluded, Bogonko Bosire. He disappeared during the post-election violence. The mother of this gentleman, because I knew him personally, she mourned this man for a very long time. It took her years upon years to even accept that the son is never coming back. She followed every story. When it was claimed that he had gone to Mozambique, wherever it was, she kept following those stories and hoping one day the son was going to come back. Why do you think it is okay for a woman to bury their child, but then they don't know how their child died? Yesterday, did you see BBC holding the guns that shot the people who were seeing on camera? They did not hold those guns. Are they the ones who are holding the cameras that covered that material? They're not the ones who are covering the material. They retrieved material, they've engaged in forensic activity to establish what happened, and they've told their story. If we had a responsible government, they would take the investigations around this death seriously. They would take accountability seriously. They would come back and tell Kenyans who these people are, and if they're not the ones who were guilty, then clear them. Because the government also has technology of proving if these people were guilty or not. Clear them. And people whose names have been mentioned, like John Kaboi, should just come back and account, because he has not given any feedback. Now is his chance to come and speak, or his bosses can come and speak on his behalf if they're the ones who instructed him. Yeah. We have to be responsible over life. Okay. When our constitution guarantees the right to life, we cannot again come back and take this away. Is this fueling anger, or is it accountability? It is accountability, and accountability is a problem in this nation because nobody ever wants to answer when they make mistakes. And this is part of the reason why most of these people should be sent home, so that we get that new breed of people with integrity who will actually care about the lives of Kenyans and not assume that they're counting sticks when they talk about the lives of people.
And mind you, one of the 10-point memorandum of understanding that was agreed upon between UD and ODM was compensation of victims
Absolutely.
of protests. So it seems to have been swept
And
under
not just
the rug.
compensation, they even talked about addressing, apologizing to the families, you know, recognizing that there was a loss to them committed by the nation of Kenya, whether it's a state or whoever it is, at least recognizing.
Okay.
If we can't bring ourselves to even recognize that we wronged those families, there's something wrong with us, because most of those people were on the streets without weapons. They were exercising rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution. If they died in the process of doing that, somebody needs to be held to account. Whoever that is, if it is not the people BBC I showed us, then the government should tell us who.
Okay. Maliba, as you come in, I don't know if you watched the documentary, because there's a part where the BBC points a blaming finger on one of the KDF officers who was at the scene of the incident. And it begs the question, IPOA can't investigate the Kenya Defense Forces. So how best do you deal with a situation like that in line with the rule of law? How do these families get justice?
You know, just say I was born on a Saturday, but I was not born last Saturday. So, looking at the response KDF gave both to BBC and eventually to the media when they asked,
Yeah.
you know, the guys at KDF think that Kenyans are dead from the neck upwards. When they actually point you to IPOA, when you know that the function of IPOA is to the police, is to assume that when we walk around, we are dead from the neck upwards. But they should know that that is a force. This was not just about the Kenyan audience. It was also about the international audience, because they are on so many missions elsewhere. So if KDF thinks that they cannot respond to us, they should even have actually just engaged crisis communication and told us, okay, guys, we have seen this particular claim, and we are instituting internal investigation. We will come back to you. But do you know how they respond to us? They think that as we move around here, we don't have heads on our shoulders. We shall not forget those kind of responses to us as a people, because tomorrow we are going to take over this particular country, and we cannot have KDF turning into a rogue force. It has been the most respected, but now with the BBC's expose, you realize that they had a man already inside Bunge way before the official, I'm looking at the time, they had a military officer inside parliament already. And that man had the audacity to shoot a man who was running away. Look at this. If somebody is facing you and you shoot that particular individual, it could be you can conjure something and say he looks like he's an aggressor. This is a person who was running and they shot him from behind. There was a man from KDF in parliament way before the Gazette was done, way before government said that they were bringing in KDF. That they cannot run away from it. And they should not think that we move around headlessly, that our shoulders do not carry heads. We see it and we keep quiet. So that cannot actually be let to go. Okay. They cannot spin around. You've realized that the National Police Service communication have no answer to this, because since Mushiri came in, Mushiri has been an expert in giving an answers. He says statements you cannot even repeat on TV. You cannot even quote as news. He's joined Mwaura, Isaac Mwaura. Mushiri now looks like a motivational speaker.
They're not here to defend
government
themselves.
communication, they will. They have their government spokesperson, and I am part and parcel of the government they speak for. As in, that government is my government, and therefore I have got a right to speak about them.
Yes.
So Mushiri has also become just a motivational speaker like Isaac Mwaura. That is not the kind of government communication that you would want. You realize that yesterday he shut up. He has nothing to say. And by the way, sometimes in 1960, the Americans had gotten busy flying over Russia, because at that particular time, missiles could not go outside of space. So as they flew a U-2 across Russia, Russians had actually a missile at that particular point that brought down that particular U-2. They brought a little bit of wreckage and told them, the Americans were here, a spy craft was here. The Americans, of course, didn't know that that was a game, so they quickly told them that that is a NASA weather research spacecraft, and that it's not a spy craft. What they didn't know is that Gary Francis Powers, the pilot, had not committed suicide with his cyanide pill. and that he had been captured alive. So 4 days later on, when Khrushchev shows up with that, the Americans looked dirty. We are looking at how KDF and the National Police Service respond to this, and then we will move to level 2, where then we give you the service number of that particular officer. Then you look at what KDF has actually communicated, and you see who they are.
Okay.
But quickly, Jesse,
as we finalize,
you've looked at the crisis in Bariko Yangata in the area Kilgoris of Narok.
Yes, it was one of our news
I
pieces.
have seen leaders who actually are angered by the killings that the police are doing in that particular area, but they are justifying the murder of the police in parliament. What kind of creatures are these? What did we give ourselves here as leaders? As in, can we really be that split that we don't know what we are doing?
All right.
But finally, I will say this, that if you look at that particular, I watched it severally, if you look at that documentary, there are a few things that we are not bold enough to speak. Command responsibility. Number one, the Nairobi command was led by Bungei. Nothing has been done against him. We had Kome at that particular point. The only thing that was done for him is he was told to go back home and read newspapers. But that command responsibility goes all the way to the president. Those people, if justice is not done, the next regime will take care of this, because Parliament does not want to address this. There has never been a time when Parliament has a moment of silence for the 7 souls that actually were lost there.
Okay, I think that's a good place to end it. Of course, so much can be said about the call to accountability and how our institutions should be well equipped with this particular matter and move with haste in order to give clarity on what exactly happened and who is responsible. But as members of the Fourth Estate, we'll do our duty in order to bring these things to the fore. Stella Garas, thank you so much. Governance and Security Analyst, Public Policy Analyst Maliba Arnold, joining us in his capacity as a party leader, Progress Plus Alliance. We appreciate your input. Asanteni sana for your time. That's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're adequately informed. My name is Jesse Rogers. Our sign language interpreter was Damian Evans. Good evening.